All right, we are here, NFL Outdated Cover 2 series, and we are focusing on the Philadelphia Eagles. I am wearing my Eagle green here, and I am joined by Jen McGraw. You can find her on at Jennifer McGraw _ on Twitter. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. It's going to be a blast. I know kickoff just started 15 minutes ago with the Eagles. I just watched their first opening drive. So far, pretty promising. It only ended with a field goal or short field goal, but we'll see what happens as this day moves on.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I mean, some of the early games usually start slow, and I do have to apologize. I was going to, give you, the welcome that maybe I really wanted to, but I couldn't figure out the Santa app to do like you know, uh, a filter or and I couldn't. Last minute, I couldn't, rent a Santa outfit. I thought that would have been perfect, but nevertheless, I'm in Philly green, so.
That works just as well.
So obviously we talked about Santa Claus. Let's talk about someone else who's had kind of a lukewarm, welcome, or kind of right now lukewarm in Philly. Jalen Hurts, is he the answer? I mean, what's really the pulse of the Philly fans and like what are their feelings and your feelings on him right now?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people I listen to WIP. I mean, like I mentioned, I'm on the other podcast at my school at Roland Radio. And some people are saying that, Jalen Hurts isn't the franchise or isn't going to be the future of the Eagles or the franchise. But I honestly kind of disagree. I like what he's done so far with the Eagles. I mean, it's been a while, not to talk down on any other quarterbacks we've had in the past. Not naming any names, but I love having a young, mobile quarterback who can get out of the pocket, who can break a tackle. I mean, so far today, I just watched that on the Eagles' opening drive. He gave me a heart attack, and he basically broke a tackle, just gained a couple yards, and their drive ended in a short field goal. But regardless, I love having a quarterback that can move and really get out of the pocket when he needs to be. In week one, he was 27 for 35 for 264 yards, three touchdowns. He was aggressive, making aggressive play calls, as well as head coach Sirianni, which I know we'll talk about later. And he was all over the field. It was a truly amazing performance on his part, and I really just liked his start into the season. I thought it was really good, and I would love to see more of that. That being said, it was only the first game of the season. I know it's not his first start, but first game of the season, so it's still pretty early. I think he's had about 7, 8, or 9 starts so far. So there's definitely a lot he has yet to prove. But so far, I kind of like him. Week two and week three were obviously not so hot. He only was 12 for 190 yards, no touchdowns in week two, and then 25 for 326 yards, two touchdowns, but also two interceptions. And he also rushed for 35 yards. So he's got a lot to prove. He's got the arm, he's got the legs. It's just he has a lot to prove.
Now, do you feel like the Philadelphia media, Philadelphia fans are a little bit more harsh on the quarterback spot? Because like I grew up, and Donovan McNabb, and he was an amazing quarterback, but I don't know if he really got the love from Philly as much as he should have, or is there more pressure on the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback now, or has there always been?
I think now more than ever, yeah, I'd say there's some pressure because in the past 4 years we've had a consistent like quarterback controversy, if you will. It started with Foles and then it went to Wentz, and then it was Wentz for a little bit, and then it was Wentz and Hurts. So there's always been some kind of pressure, I guess, on the quarterback position, but then now more than ever it's kind of being amplified because Wentz is gone, but he's still going to play a factor in the Eagles. But now Hurts is stepping up, and Eagles fans, I mean, I do it. Eagles fans are super quick to, boo you when you're doing something wrong or cheer you on when you're doing something right because we're just so passionate about our sports. So it's definitely, it's, there's definitely going to be some pressure, I feel, but Jalen Hurts, I think so far has really taken in that pressure, and he knows what he's up against.
Absolutely. And when I kind of look at quarterbacks and their success, a lot of it has to do with their receivers. And I've really been on the Devonte Smith, hype train. I watched him in preseason, and he just knows how to get open. And obviously, that's huge in the NFL, getting open. And talk a little bit about, like, obviously his emergence, and what about the other, core of receivers like Reagor and Watkins.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really excited for like the wide receiver room that we have this year. I saw it in preseason. I know Watkins was really explosive in preseason. Devonte Smith was really good in that week one starter, like I mentioned. His first reception was a touchdown. I mean, even I cried at that because it was just like monumental for him and like a special moment for him. And then even Jalen Reagor, he definitely has some room to improve, but he's definitely not out of this conversation either. He's also very explosive and he can really get down the field and get open as well. Um, I guess the big thing that I'd have to talk about is that the fact that we have all of these wide receivers who are explosive, fast, they can get down the field, they can catch these deep plays. It's crucial. It's crucial for the Eagles, and like I said, it excites me. But it's a matter of them being utilized. I don't think they've been utilized to their full extent yet. I mean, look, they can get open. I know I have no doubt in my mind that Devonte Smith could basically 99% of the time get open if he needs to be, but they're just not utilizing the wide receivers like they should yet. And it frustrates me because it's just a matter of utilizing in the way that they know, or that the head coaches know best, and that the team knows best. Because Jalen Hurts and Devonte Smith, they play together, so there should be like no problem. There should be at least a Hurts to Devonte Smith quarterback to wide receiver touchdown like every week, because of connection, because they know they know how to work together. And so we have the talent, we just need to use it.
So yeah, that is interesting. Obviously, you brought up coaching. Nick Sirianni, he's in his first year, right? He kind of he got a lot of flack this past week with the shirt that he wore to the Cowboys game, and obviously that didn't pay off. And he's obviously getting a lot of criticism. So are
Right.
you, as kind of Philly fan, and as watching the games, so you're really seeing a lot of improvement that you kind of needed from him? Do you really trust him?
I think like with the quarter or like with Jalen Hurts, I think he still has a lot to prove because the difference between him and Hurts is this is now fourth game that he's making these like play calls. And in the first game, he did great. In the second and third games, he don't know and then now today, we'll hopefully see a little bit better play calling on his part. In the off season, so much about how we're going to be aggressive this season, we're going to attack, and we're going to be like, we're gonna, and we haven't really seen that yet, except in the first game, there was definitely some aggression there, and it was great, and I love that. Like as a football fan, I love aggressive plays. I love it when you go like when you're 4th and 5 and you just go for it because like you play like the game is on the line because it is. Um, so I'd love to see that aggression, and I would love to see more aggression from Nick Sirianni as well, in terms of play calling. And another thing that I have noted here, so another thing that I mentioned is don't let your quarterback scramble. Too many times I think we've seen in the past 2 games, Jalen Hurts trying to like scramble or make a play or do something that was just not really that wasn't like the smartest play call. So I really want to see head coach Sirianni do more kind of like calling that is for the moment but aggressive. It Let me rephrase that. That's smart, that makes sense, but is also aggressive.
Absolutely. And so, as a head coach, he is the calling the plays then.
Right.
Because yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the struggle. I'm a Bears fan, and that's been the struggle with Matt Nagy, he has been the head coach and the play caller. And the criticism is that you need that CEO head
Mhm.
coach to just kind of be able to hold people accountable and just kind of be over everything. And he's not willing to give up the play calling. And obviously they have not, been good offensively. And so, they say, Chicago Sports Radio, he can't, or he doesn't want to fire himself on that role. So, obviously if Sirianni is calling the plays, he's still got a year or so, a few games here, under his belt, but he's going to have to really kind of improve that, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I give you like I give I'm talking about mistakes that Sirianni has made and like some things that he can improve on. But I also realize, and as others do, that he's still in his first year. So there's going to be mistakes, and this is our rebuilding year. I choose to not believe that. I think we should, go for it and go all the way. But he's still in his first year, and I think he's got a lot under his belt, and he's one of the things that you touched on is accountability, and I like that he holds himself accountable. I like that we have a quarterback that holds himself accountable. So even though there might be some mistakes on the field, they acknowledge the mistakes and they work to do better.
Now, speaking about some of the other parts of the offense, I have some shares in Miles Sanders in a few of my fantasy leagues, and it was kind of interesting last week, just the usage between him and Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, and obviously they acknowledged that they had to keep up, with the Cowboys, and that's why I think that's why they went more with Kenneth Gainwell. But obviously they're against the Chiefs this week, so they're going to have to, definitely keep up. What is that running back kind of room, and maybe the split between carries look like? Is it really like a running back by committee now?
Yeah, I would think so because like I mentioned with the wide receivers, I absolutely love our running back room this year. Our running back room is stacked. I mean, Miles Sanders, he's returning obviously, and he's phenomenal. He's fantastic. And Kenneth Gainwell, he showed a lot in the preseason, and then even in the first game, and he was absolutely again incredible. Week one, actually, Sanders had 15 carries for 74 yards, and Gainwell had 9 carries for about 37 yards, and also one touchdown. And then from there, and first of all, that was great. I mean, that because I personally love a run game more than a pass game, just because to me, a run game feels more not only secure, but you have more time of possession, and that's going to be like a big key, a big factor for these or for the Eagles offense. And so from week one, when we had this like fantastic record of 15, 13 carries, we just started dwindling down from there. And by, Sunday or by Monday night with the Cowboys, Sanders had 2 carries, Gainwell had 1 carry. It was significantly, severely less than what we've seen. And it really didn't pay off. So I don't know what they were trying to go for there, but it obviously didn't work. But that being said, I hope that Sirianni doesn't take this and overcompensate this week against the Chiefs
Yeah, the Chiefs. Yeah,
because
well, especially
yeah,
with the Chiefs having a horrible run defense as well.
right.
So, it is kind of interesting. It's easy to look kind of game by game and not really, look at the matchups because obviously there are some matchups that you're going to have to take what the defense gives you. And obviously you kind of look at some of the other weapons that the Eagles have. They really have, I would say, a decent amount of offensive weapons, and that goes back to the tight end. Ertz has been a stud for a while, and then now Goedert. So what is obviously Ertz has been there. How much longer will Ertz be there? And obviously, is Goddard kind of now the number one tight end?
Um, I'm not sure about Earth. I believe that this is like this may be like a one extra year because I honestly thought he was going to be gone in the off season, and then it just kept getting pushed back, and until finally he was back on the team, which I'm so glad because he's still a phenomenal tight end. There's no reason to get rid of him, and for what? You know what I mean? Week one, Goddard had 4 carries and for 42 yards and 1 touchdown. and Ertz had 2 carries for 34 yards, and then from there, like with the running backs, it just went down, and then we didn't even use our tight end game. I can't remember if it was week 2 or week 3. I believe it was week 2 that we barely used our tight end game. And like, why? I mean, yes, we're stacked on wide receivers, we're stacked on running backs, but don't forget about your tight ends because Goddard and Hurts they can still get downfield. I don't care about their age or whatever. They can still get downfield and make those plays that can ultimately result in touchdowns. And we saw that actually last week with I believe it was Goddard, and then I saw it as of 30 minutes ago. Um, Goddard who made another catch that was great. So if we're utilizing our tight ends like we should, and this goes back to utilizing the weapons that we have, it's the Eagles' offense will be explosive.
Well, that can really help Jalen Hurts as well. Obviously to kind of have that tight ends. A lot of times is the security blanket. The check down or whatever. Um, you know, going back to kind of Hurts. I mean, what is your feeling and maybe the fan base, the Twitter, Eagles Twitter, thoughts on his decision making. Obviously, he's got these weapons. Is he kind of really kind of going back to that? Is he processing and making the right reads, things like that?
I mean, I hope so. I know in the preseason he was very amped up. He was very fired up with connecting, not connecting so much on the field, but connecting off the field. And kind of, I remember somebody mentioned that he was quizzing his running backs on plays. He was quizzing his like wide receivers on plays. So I know he was fired up to be able to utilize his weapons. And I just don't know why it didn't translate for these past 2 games on the field. Um, I think it was just it could have been a fluke. You never know. Hopefully, this as an Eagles fan, fingers crossed that that's what it was. But I believe that he is seeing now, the mistakes that he's making, and he can go back and rethink things through and kind of approach it from another angle. And hopefully, that another angle is, like I said, utilizing the weapons that he has because he's got, like I said, he's got the arm to make the deep throws, and he's got the weapons that can get deep to make crucial plays. It's just a matter of that connection.
Absolutely. And obviously, uh, nationally, we've kind of heard some rumors about Watson going to the Eagles. Have you heard more kind of about that? I mean, I don't know if it's what's real, what's not. If he was, green lighted that they would trade for him, and you know, would he really be an upgrade from? Would Deshaun Watson really be an upgrade from Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, so I think it was after maybe week 2 or week 3 that like rumors started floating around about, what if, we just trade for Watson and just call it a season. But people got to remember that Watson did say that he did not want to come to Philadelphia. He doesn't want to play for the Eagles.
Oh,
So we're gonna see not to, pull a whole Philly sports logo or like Philly sports thing out here, but like Watson would kind of be like Ben Simmons of the 76ers right now, because Ben Simmons is going through that whole NBA thing. I'm sure you probably heard because it's like all over, and
oh yeah.
he's
I didn't
not
want to
wanting to
pour.
play.
I didn't want to pour salt on the wound there. So
It's all right. It's the soap opera of Philly sports. That's what we're working with. But Dijon Watson would definitely be like another Ben Simmons because he doesn't want to play, and I'm sure he would do anything in his power to not play for the Eagles because said he didn't want to play. So I hope Howie Roseman's looking at that, and Jeffrey Lurie and the head coach is looking at that and saying this would not be a worthwhile trade. Let's stick with what we have, and we'll just go from there, and we'll make tweaks as needed. If Jalen Hurts ends up not staying after the season, we still have Joe Flacco and we still have Gardner Minshew, and so we can really work from there.
yeah, I mean, speaking of, obviously Joe Flacco is, the backup, but I believe Minshew's the third string. What were your thoughts when that went through? I mean, that just seemed really kind of random, didn't it?
It did, but I loved it. I still kind of loved it. Uh, Not even so much as because of the Minshew magic and things like that, but um, Minshew is still good, and I don't really know what the thought process is of having him as a third string quarterback, in my opinion. Um, I would like to see him at second, but then again, I would also like to see what he can do. But I don't want, like, if I'm thinking as a general manager or as a head coach, I don't want to run the risk of putting Minshew in. when Hertz is on fire, because then it's going to create not only drama in, like, not even kind of drama in the quarterback room, but drama within the fan base, and Eagles fans will be quick to say something. Um, so I'd like to see more of what he can do, but I personally, I kind of like that the trade. I think we won that trade, to be honest. Um, so yeah, I personally like it, and I think this quarterback room is full of swag. So
Well,
I'm very excited about that.
yeah. Well, and maybe that's part of the thinking of having him as the third stringer, so it's not like he's actually going to be pushing Jalen Hurts. He's there. And it'll be interesting. Obviously, we don't. No one knows how many more years Flacco has, and he could also be mentoring Hurts with all of his experience and all that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was definitely on the Minshew hype train. Was it a couple years ago, or I don't know, even last year? Just love his personality. Love that swag. And that's what you want from the quarterback position.
Right, and I think it was almost kind of like, I mean, yes, it was very random, but it was also kind of like a sigh of relief for Eagles fans, because we've been through a lot of quarterback controversy this year, or this past couple years. So now we've got Minshew and Flacco, and there's been nothing, like really no drama, no nothing, no comparison of them. Well, to my knowledge, no comparison of them, because the comparison really fell on Hurts versus Watson, or Hurts versus Wentz. Um, so it kind of just feels like a relief.
And what were your thoughts kind of when Wentz, I mean, were you a Wentz fan? And obviously, when that kind of trade went down, I mean, what were your kind of thoughts, when that all of that drama was happening then?
Yeah, I definitely was a Wentz fan. I remember back in 2017, I was one of the people that was like, "You can take my ACL if it means that we can win. Like, I will gladly give it to you." He lived in Woodstown, and I'm not far from Woodstown. Like, I gladly would have driven over there. So I was a
That's
huge Wentz
awesome.
fan. Yeah, it was cool. And I obviously wish him all the best in Indianapolis. I hope he balls out in Indianapolis. Kind of like, um I guess, I over the years I started being less and less really of a Wentz fan after the Super Bowl, and I think part of it too was I let the quarterback controversy have me take a side, and I obviously, after the Super Bowl, I liked Foles because he helped us win the Super Bowl, but then at the same time Wentz got us to the position to win the Super Bowl. Like, we wouldn't be where we are without Wentz, and so I think some fans kind of forget that sometimes. But when he got traded, by that point, I was like, maybe it's a smart decision, just kind of stop, rebuild, get rid of some kind of like weaker links or weak problems that we had in our quarterback room, and kind of just really on the roster as well, um, and just kind of like go from there and rebuild from there.
Yeah, and he didn't really want to be there. And I don't know if that was kind of a Doug Peterson thing. That was kind of interesting. Obviously you have a coach that, won a Super Bowl and now, I mean, how many years later is gone? I mean, that doesn't happen very often, unless they're actually moving on to a different role. And yeah. So, what were your thoughts kind of on Doug Peterson's exit?
I was glad he was gone. I was absolutely glad he
Really?
was gone. And I guess kind of the same thing. Like, I let other people's um, kind of thoughts and things, and then after, like, stuff that I felt like, obviously not just other people's influences, but what I've seen from him in some of the play calling that he's done throughout the next couple years after the Super Bowl, it just kind of seemed like it was like not like a downgrade, but kind of he kind of downgraded a little bit, and I just don't know what happened. And he wasn't really, and it goes back to accountability too. He wasn't really taking accountability for what went wrong. He just kind of, breezed over some media questions, and it over like from that, and from what he did off the field and what he did on the field, kind of just made me feel like, yeah, it's time for him to go. And in fact, I remember the day perfectly that he was fired. I was sitting in my living room, and I was watching like a TV show, and then all of a sudden it's like breaking news. It literally was breaking news. It was 6 ABC breaking news. They said, we interrupt this program to let you know that Doug Peterson has been fired, and I started cheering and clapping just because he was gone. Just because like I said, everything that he did on the field after the Super Bowl and the couple years that happened after the Super Bowl, and then the things that he did off the field, it just didn't feel right with me. It didn't feel like he, it didn't feel like he should be there.
Right. It is always interesting, what happens the year after the Super Bowl win, as far as the players, they're not as hungry or whatever, or even coaches, sometimes can get full of themselves. And you see that a lot in the NFL, see that a lot in pro sports.
Right. And I think that was a problem that the Eagles had as a whole the year after the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, we're coming off of a Super Bowl win. We're the Super Bowl champs. Like, obviously, we're going to be happy about that. But I think the Eagles let it get to their head a little too much, and they were like cheering and, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, really. And it came back to bite them, and it still came back to bite them in the years after that.
And obviously the offense gets a lot of hype, and the focus was on Wentz, and you know the quarterback position then. But did the defense really kind of lead them there to the Super Bowl kind of more so as well?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we had I keep using the word explosive, but it's true. I mean, we had a really, really great defense going into the Super Bowl. I mean, we had Jalen Mills, who was absolutely amazing, and like with Wentz, I hope Jalen Mills just absolutely balls out with the Patriots. Um,
Oh,
but
I bet that's tough to say.
it really is. He'll always be Green Goblin. He's
Oh,
always the Green
nice.
Goblin. Um, but it was we definitely had a really good defense. We had a stacked defense, and I think that definitely played a key role, not only getting into the Super Bowl, but with the Super Bowl as well. Um, Brandon Graham with the infamous strip sack in the fourth quarter definitely sealed the deal, and I think it's just that momentum that they had coming into the Super Bowl and then continuing in the Super Bowl is what helped that defense really succeed.
Absolutely. And you brought up Brandon Graham. He's hurt now, right?
He is, and
And
it breaks my heart.
how long is he out for the rest of the season, or what's it looking like?
He's out for the rest of the season, so that's going to be it. It really is a huge loss for the Eagles. Um, and like it sucks because a couple weeks ago, actually, I met Brandon Graham at this event he had or they had at the Depot Mall, and I asked him, if you had one word, because I only had time for one question. I was like, if you could use one word to describe how you're feeling about this upcoming season, what would it be? And in his like super awesome laid back personality, he said optimistic. So I really
Wow.
hope that continues on. I really hope that feeling not only from him but in the Eagles defense really um, is still optimistic because you can look at and we saw it in 2017. You can look at a season ending injury from a key player as a good thing, where you can rally around them and you can overcome this adversity and you can win the Super Bowl, or you can crumble because you're missing a key player. And I really hope that the Eagles defense does not do the latter of the two, obviously, because Brandon Graham is a key player, but we also have other key players on defense that really just
Yeah,
need to step up and show out.
yeah. Who
And
who else is going to step up? I mean, you still have like Fletcher Cox. He is, he's
mhm,
there, right? He's kind of been a mainstay. Who else is going to kind of step up with Brandon Graham out?
yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Fletcher Cox, I think, is going to be huge just because he's also there. He's a veteran. He's a very really really good veteran. Um, and I just think that it's a next man up mentality. So whoever is coming, because Brandon Graham was one of the first couple injuries in the season, but he's not going to be the last. So um, whoever else is on Eagles defense, it's got to be that next man up mentality. And I really hope that Fletcher Cox, because I think Fletcher Cox is probably going to be one of the people or one of the key players that Eagles fans are going to look at this season because Brandon Graham is down. Um, so just to look to him for leadership and kind of just have that mentality of next man up. We can still do this. We can still strip sack Tom Brady when we face him in 2 weeks, kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Already looking forward to that. I don't know. That's the thing. You kind of look at schedule wise, and the Eagles they've had a tough schedule. What and obviously as a fan, you're optimistic, but what would your kind of realistic win total be for this year? Obviously now with Graham out.
Yeah, so I mean, it's October, it's spooky season now, and the Eagles have a spooky next set of games coming up because we've obviously got the Chiefs today, Panthers next week, Bucks the week after that, and then I believe the Raiders, but I'm not sure.
It is
But
the
I know we
Raiders.
have
Yep.
another really good set of teams coming up that we're facing. So overall this season, I would say that the Eagles are going 11-6 at best. Now
Right.
that's definitely at best, or and it pains me to say this, probably like 6-11 or 7-10 at the worst.
Right. And are you the type of fan that kind of lives and dies, with the wins and losses? I mean, or you kind of see big picture? I mean, obviously there are a lot of young players, on the team. Do you kind of see that and just take those positives, maybe even going into because obviously it's been tough and it's going to be really a tough road now to win the East, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think the Eagles have it easy until maybe like November, obviously like November, maybe mid-November. So they're not going to have it easy. Yeah, they're not going to have it easy this next set of games, no doubt.
And it's interesting, just kind of looking at the schedule. They play Washington twice the last out of the last four games. That'll be interesting. But yeah, they really have a lot of. They play the Broncos, the Chargers, Saints defense. So obviously it'll be interesting to see how they develop and then kind of going into the off season. Obviously, got to look at the draft. Are there certain positions that you see now that you think they should probably address going into the
Yeah,
draft?
if we're looking at specifics, I mentioned that or I've seen that we definitely probably need like a cornerback. We need like a strong cornerback position, or like room. Linebackers definitely, but also looking at a more general approach, I really want to start um, kind of filling spots of like the people like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. Not to say that like those veterans are not going to be here next season or the season after that even, but because they're getting to a point where they can be injury prone. They're not young anymore. They're not as mobile as like some of the younger players on the team, but they're still going to be around and they can do some damage, but it would be nice to have some insurance on that kind of end and kind of filling those spots like the second and third strings a little better. So I'm kind of looking at defensive wise, maybe offense, but like so far we're doing pretty good rebuilding on offense. So I'm kind of looking at some key players, even Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, who I know is out today. Um, just to kind of fill those secondaries a little better.
Well, and that's a great call on the secondary. What they do have Darius Slay. I'm not sure how long he's right, but
Right.
trying to keep up with obviously if Dak Prescott keeps up what he's doing, and obviously all the receivers the Cowboys have, you really have to have solid quarterbacks and a solid secondary to really cover that. And obviously Washington, they've got a solid receiver, but they haven't necessarily answered the quarterback position quite yet. So obviously,
Right.
the biggest thing is kind of winning that division, and right now it seems like it. Unfortunately, probably for you, that it goes through Dallas.
Yeah. It's and I don't even want to say that like this year is going to be a rebuilding year. It probably will obviously take a couple years, and it'll be hard to watch at times. But I'm sure in a couple years that we're gonna have something. I mean, we have potential now, and I think I even mentioned this the other day, like with a friend or something. This team as of week one, not counting week two and week three, as of
Right.
week one, this team kind of looked like the 2016 Eagles, kind of just that young, Didn't really know what they were kind of like yet, kind of Eagles. And they were young, they were fast, they were passionate about playing. That's another big thing, just wanting to be passionate about playing with the Eagles and not just doing it for a paycheck. So it kind of feels like this team is on the way to be kind of that.
Yeah, and kind of an outsider looking in, I do see a lot of key pieces, and obviously, I think kind of going obviously back to the quarterback and wide receiver room. You know, a lot of times the receivers can really make a quarterback look good as well. And I really think, I've really been on Devonte Smith, and I think, that chemistry can really help. And if you have that offense that can really control the ball, and like you talked about as well, with the running backs and really control the clock, I think that's important. And that can, obviously help the defense and all of that all around. And I think, looking at, compared to some of the other teams in the division, Giants, right? They don't necessarily have
Not a
as many.
problem.
Not a problem, right? And so kind of ranking the teams, I would say the Eagles have a lot of promise, and I'm not even an Eagles fan. I've kind of started to become one, mainly because Devonte Smith, I have to admit. So I do have a little bit of a man crush on him. I he's on all my teams, and he's on my dynasty team, and really, I really think that Hertz can really take that next step. Obviously, it's a tough market though, right?
Absolutely. And I'm sure Hurts has obviously seen that, even last season between him and Wentz. But I think so far he's handling it pretty well. And I know he addressed it in the media. It was in the preseason. He addressed in the media about the Watson trade. He wasn't even focused on it. He was just kind of focused on making himself better, and working hard just so he can be the quarterback that I know he wants to be for the Eagles. And I just hope that the Eagles front office and the Eagles coaching staff can see that too.
Well, this has been fantastic. I'm glad that this worked out. Obviously, it's been great to have you hear a lot of your insights.
Thank
And
you.
now you can be found on at Jennifer McGraw _ on Twitter. And where else can you be found?
I mean, the at Jennifer McGraw underscore is good for all of my social media, so that's Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And then also my link to my blog is actually in the link. It's linked into all my social media, so I don't really have to explain. But my link to my blog can also be found on my social medias, and I talk about not only sports but like lifestyle stuff as well. Because I'm a features editor and I'm an editor in chief for like two different news publications on my campus. It gives me the opportunity to sometimes take a break from the stress that can be Eagles football or just football in general and talk about other things. Um, but yeah, I'm mostly sports though. I got love for my Eagles and I love talking about them.
Well, I definitely appreciate you talking, and everyone listening to this, definitely follow Jennifer on all of her social media and everything. And once again, thanks. And um, obviously, look forward to the season and even next season. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you. This has been a pleasure.